present the statement. Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Msebi, and allow me to acknowledge Mr. Emeren, Mr. Makaipa, Mr. Mkhize, and of course all of you ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. And before I start with today's announcement, as I'm Minister of Transport, I thought it important just to share with you that on this panel, we have Mr. Mkhize, who completed the 94.7 cycle challenge in 3 hours, and Mr. Emeren, who completed it in 4 hours. And we have Mr. Makaipa and Mr. Msebi, who say that they couldn't ride because the minister was on their neck. So I just thought we should congratulate those who did ride and finished successfully. Colleagues, today we announce another important milestone in our collective journey to make rail the cornerstone of our national transport and logistics system. We are releasing requests for information for potential private partners who are interested in investing in our passenger rail system. By the end of May 2025, PRASA had successfully commissioned 35 out of 40 priority passenger corridors and had achieved an audited figure of 77 million passengers in the past financial year. To continue on the recovery path, PRASA requires additional investment that cannot be carried by our fiscus alone. Participation in the request for information process will assist the organization to gather information, innovative ideas, and solutions, which will guide future requests for proposals for private sector investment in the passenger rail sector. The request covers a range of different areas that include fare collection systems, depot management, utilization and commercialization of PRASA's fiber network to enhance digital connectivity and operational resilience within the rail sector and beyond, as well as insights and innovative ideas for new long-distance regional rapid transit. Today, as I said, we are launching this series of requests for information, and allow me to take a moment to explain in simple terms what each of these projects is about. Most importantly, each one of these projects are being announced today with the sole purpose of attracting the interest of the private sector to make these projects a reality. The projects are as follows. The first, smart ticketing for seamless travel. We're moving towards a single tap and go ticket that you can use across trains, buses, and even taxis. No more queues or paper tickets. Just one account-based system that makes travel easier and helps us manage revenue transparently and efficiently. The private sector has an important role to play to make this a reality. The second area is upgrading PRASA's train depots for better reliability. We want to partner with the private sector to modernize our maintenance depots at Braamfontein and Valmerton. This will mean faster train repairs, better reliability, and new investment in nearby areas, creating jobs and boosting local development. It is for this reason that the private sector participation is paramount, given the magnitude of this project. The third area is to turn PRASA's fibre optic network into an asset. Along our railway lines, PRASA is rolling out thousands of kilometres of fibre optic cable as part of its new signalling system. We're opening the door for this to private sector partners to help us turn that network into a source of income by offering broadband and digital services while strengthening safety and real-time communication across the rail system. The fourth area is introducing regional rapid trains. We are planning a new generation of regional trains, faster, safer, and more frequent, connecting cities like Tshwane, Johannesburg, Polokwane, Musina, Mbombela, and eThekwini, using our existing network of up to 120 kilometers per hour, building new 160 to 200 kilometers per hour regional lines, and testing the water for a new 300 kilometer per hour high-speed railway between Johannesburg and eThekwini. These lines will shorten travel times, reduce travel costs, take the pressure off our roads, and stimulate new development in towns along the routes. These regional projects are not possible without private sector partners. Leasing PRASA's new blue trains, building trains for the African continent, and repurposing the old yellow trains is the fifth area of investment. PRASA's new blue trains built at the Gibela factory in Nigel are world-class. We also have older yellow trains that can be repurposed for new uses. Through this RFI, we're inviting skilled private operators to lease and manage our new and old fleet under clear performance standards, keeping them safe, reliable, and on time. At the same time, we're partnering with manufacturers to position South Africa as Africa's leading train builder, creating jobs, boosting local manufacturing, and turning our country into a regional export hub in line with the African Union Resolution 2015. These RFIs are not tenders. They are an invitation for the market to help us design the future of passenger rail. Together, we can build confidence in public transport, open up investment opportunities, and connect South Africans to the growth we need. The rail and port freight RFI process is part of our broader freight logistics roadmap, which seeks to restore efficiency, reliability, and competitiveness in the movement of goods across our country. It also reflects government's commitment to implementing the National Rail Policy 2022 and the National Ports Policy, as well as the Private Sector Participation Framework of 2023, all of which recognize the critical role of partnerships with the private sector in revitalizing our transport infrastructure. Both policies enshrine public ownership of our rail and port network while promoting private sector investment to enhance efficiency and effectiveness. To guide the improvement of the passenger rail system, we have set a clear target over the next 4 years, which is to ensure that we move 600 million rail passengers by the 2030 financial year. We're eager to partner with the private sector to realize this target, setting us on course to build a 21st century transport system that transcends mobility challenges to strengthen industrial competitiveness, deepen regional integration, and drive inclusive economic growth. The RFI process is a critical step in this private sector participation journey, and reflects government's acknowledgement of the importance of considering rail, passenger and freight logistics landscape from the perspective of all interested and affected parties. We have concluded, as you know, a memorandum of agreement with the Development Bank of South Africa and National Treasury, appointing DBSA as the implementing agent on behalf of the Department of Transport for the PSP unit. The PSP unit is in the process of being capacitated and will be ready to commence with the conceptualization of bid windows and the development of requests for proposals. Colleagues, you will remember that on the 23rd of March 2025, we launched the first phase of online requests for information to interested and affected parties in the Transnet, rail, and port logistics sector. The first RFI process closed out on the 30th of May, and we received a total of 162 formal responses, with 52 of the respondents being from 12 countries outside of South Africa. Following on from this process, Transnet will issue the first request for proposal before the end of 2025 and 3 more requests for proposals in the first half of 2026. Both the RFI analysis report and the passenger rail RFIs will be made available on the Department of Transport and the DBSA websites or directly at www.psp/rfi.co.za. Now, for those who are interested in the passenger rail RFI, you must complete your input on the online portal from the 26th of October, which is today, until the 15th of December. Interested and affected parties will be prompted to register their details before accessing the RFI analysis report on freight transport. Inputs and comments for the freight analysis results, which, as I've explained, are also on the website, can be provided within 30 days. The passenger rail RFI will remain open for a period of 8 weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. There you have it, colleagues. We'll take questions. You can just introduce yourself and the news outlet you represent by show of hands. Any takers? We also got online. Vanessa, where are you? Okay. All right. Colleagues? Gog?
Thank you very much. Mkhuleko from ENCA. Minister, mine is just simple. Perhaps is just to ask whether the South African government regrets not maintaining the transport infrastructure so much that now we are asking the private sector to come and bail you out. If only you had maintained what was working, you wouldn't be where you are today. Do you regret not taking care of this infrastructure, and now you have to go out and ask the private sector to assist you, bearing in mind that the role of the private sector is just to make profit? What's in it for them? That's number one. But also number two, this is just a request for information for now. It's not privatization, but you are aware that your critics and opposition parties are skeptical of this. They are saying it's the start of the privatization process. How would you respond to them? Thank you.
Okay. Second question. Any hands? Minister, can you take that?
Thank you very much for that question. I think that we can agree with you that prior to the onset of the COVID pandemic, there was underinvestment in both our passenger rail and our freight rail. But that underinvestment was not what caused the severe logistics crisis that we experienced in 2022 and 2023. That severe logistics crisis was created by the vandalism that happened during the COVID lockdown. And that was a time when I suppose the lines were not operating. There was extensive cable theft. There was also encroachment onto the rail reserve, and there was also vandalization of the station infrastructure. And that was extremely serious. But in the PRASA network, most of that vandalization has been recovered, and the state has paid for that recovery. I think if you look at the areas where we're requesting investment, it is in areas where we are expanding and developing new services and modernizing the passenger rail system. What I think is very important to say, and let me repeat it, the ownership of the rail network and of the port's infrastructure, both the passenger rail network and the freight rail network, will remain in the hands of the state. And the reason that we are doing that is we want to ensure that there will always be set standards for operators, set standards for maintenance, and of course in the passenger rail sector, we will always subsidize the urban commuter network, because we understand that that network has historically been very important so that we are able to give working people affordable and safe transport to go to work. And that's why the state has been investing so much money in restoring the priority rail corridors, because we understand that at the moment, South Africans are spending 10 times the amount on public transport that their counterparts in other developing countries are spending. And the reason is that as a result of the vandalism that happened during the COVID pandemic, people have been forced either to walk or to use other means of transport that is more expensive. So that is something that is a very important social service, and our intention is to restore it. But there are other opportunities where PRASA can achieve revenue that obviously is important for the bottom line and for making sure that there are finances available for the expansion of the urban passenger network. But also, of course, there's a whole new era of rail developing across the world. South Africa as a country wants to be part of that new era of rail. And we will shortly be taking the Master Rail Plan to Cabinet and releasing it for public comment. And that Master Rail Plan will show everybody the vision we have for rail over the next 30 years up to 2050. At this stage, with the difficulties that our fiscus has, we will not be able to substantially increase the rail network without bringing in private sector investment. We imagine that that investment would be in the form either of a concession or a build, operate and transfer, with the intention that once the concession period or the BOT period comes to an end, the infrastructure will revert to the ownership of the state. This kind of approach has been very successfully used by SANRAL, our national road agency, and I'm sure we all agree that without private sector investment, the N3, the N4, the N2 would not be the standard of road network that they are today. But those roads are belong to the public and belong to the state. And the toll fees that we receive from long-distance transport on those roads enables us to maintain them. So I think that it is that kind of model that we want to use for rail expansion, because we understand that at this point in time, National Treasury is not in a position to finance a new rapid rail system from Johannesburg to Durban, for example, or a new rapid rail system from Johannesburg to Messina. But that doesn't mean that the volume of traffic that needs to travel would not require such infrastructure. And the question that we have to confront is, given the existing reality, how do we finance it? But it is not our intention to privatize. It is our intention to make sure that those assets will revert to the ownership of the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Goge, are you happy? I knew you were coming back again. Okay, you can go ahead.
We should be doing a one-on-one.
Oh, yes, I think so. We are going to do one.
Colleagues were going to take over from me, but it's fine. For this ambitious plan, regional trains, it's not a new plan. It's been mooted before. For many years, it has not taken off. And also what makes it difficult for the government is the fact that the economy is not growing. It's not going to grow any time from now. So you will definitely need the private sector. But my question is, are there any time frames and projections and cost projections of this ambitious project that has been mooted before but not implemented? So are there any time frames and cost projections for this? Thank you.
Okay. I'll take Roy.
Thanks, Colin. Minister, I'd appreciate if you could actually comment on whether there have been any negotiations with the taxi industry to bring them into the loop with regards to that charging system which operates over rail, bus and taxis, and what their reaction is. There have been problems in the past with having such an electronic management system for tickets. Thank you.
SABC,
from SABC News. Minister, I also wanted to just offer Roy's question. How is it going to work, the integration with the taxi industry as well as the rail, passenger rail? How's that integration going to work, or what was the thinking behind that in terms of what you want it to look like? And then just maybe just an indication on the number of jobs that plan to be created. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
No online questions.
Well, we'll come to the Zomeli.
No.
No. Oh, is it okay? Minister?
So, with regard to the issue of timeframes, this process, the RFI process, is an 8-week process. What we have learned from the RFI process of Transnet is that there is a lot of appetite, and it takes longer to process the submissions than we had already anticipated. So I would imagine that once we receive the submissions, given the fact that DBSA is enhancing their capacity, we could look at a 4 to 6 month period for processing. Once we have the processed results, PRASA would then be in a position to issue calls for requests for proposals, which is obviously the start of the formal tendering process. I think when you are talking about rail lines, just so that you have a sense, the only rail line that I've ever been directly involved with was the Gautrain. So from the time of the RFI process until financial close, it took 3 years. And from the process of financial close to build, it was 7 years. So I think that what we have to understand is that building new railway lines is not a tomorrow morning project. But I think what is important is that we are now formally on the journey towards assessing the feasibility of doing this and actually putting out the formal requests for proposals. So I think it's very important that we understand that, as I say, building new railway lines is not an immediate issue. But if you don't start, you will never finish. So with regard to bringing the taxi industry into the loop, the taxi industry themselves are in the process of developing an electronic payment system, because there is great concern within the industry itself that operators don't necessarily have control over the cash that would be coming into their vehicles. Obviously, you also have electronic payment systems that are being developed by Gautrain and by the Gauteng provincial government. This process is asking for information. So any of the participants who are involved in that, including the taxi industry, can respond to this and say, we have capacity to do this, that, and the next thing. We are interested in participating in this process in the following manner. So that's why you do a request for information, because you want to understand who's involved in this industry, what is their capacity, and what would be their appetite to expand whatever service they are currently involved in to the country as a whole. You know, I had the privilege a couple of weeks back to be in the UK, and you literally, wherever you go, any mode of transport, you just tap your credit card. There's no cash in the system at all. And I think that that is the kind of modern system that we would want to see in our country. I think the SABC, your question is really important, because when we say that we want rail to be the backbone of the system for the transportation of people and goods, we all understand that if you look at the human skeleton, there's a backbone, but there are arms, there are legs, there are ribs, there's a neck, there's a head. So a backbone does not mean that nobody else exists, and does not mean that nobody else doesn't have a significant role to play in a transport system. So trucking in the freight sector and taxis in the passenger sector will always have a significant role to play. First mile, last mile, intermediate mile. Because we understand that rail by its very nature is much more static than trucking and taxiing, which are much more flexible modes of transport and can go anywhere. So the question is, as you build stations, as you build ports, as you build airports, how are you creating around those facilities the intermodal and multimodal opportunities? And I think that you would have seen that in many of the more recent developments, they have been designed with that multimodal idea in mind. so that you can get off the train and into a taxi. You can unload your goods from a train and put them into trucking. I had a very interesting experience when I went to KZN to open the section of the N3 that runs from Ashburton to Cato Ridge. And what we saw in Cato Ridge is that all of the motor vehicles that are coming on ship are being moved on truck to Cato Ridge, because Cato Ridge is outside of the Rust Belt. So when they want to unwrap these vehicles, they need to do it in a situation where they're not going to rust immediately. At Cato Ridge, you have also got a Transnet facility, but you've also got truck staging facilities. And so already you're seeing this natural development of multimodal transport infrastructure developing. A brand new highway, truck staging, new warehousing, and intermodal developments. So I think that we must always understand that in transport we are never talking about either or. We're talking about how do we make sure that everything is participating in its right place in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Minister. Suppose that brings us closer to the end. Any other questions, colleagues? Other than that, we'll take one-on-ones. Goge has asked for 12 minutes, so it will be 12 minutes. You cover.
12 minutes.
Aman. Okay. Colleagues online, Vanessa?
We have one question from the online platform. Saldanha Bulk from East Coast Radio in KZN. Can you please provide an estimate of the funding needed for the 300-kilometer-per-hour high-speed train between Johannesburg and Durban?
No, we don't know yet.
We don't know.
We're still doing the feasibility work. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
One more journalist typing, but I suppose you can take it up.
Yeah, there's still a feasibility that's going to be done on that, so we don't have those figures. Colleagues, that brings us to the end. I would request that the Minister remain with the panel where they are. We've got the CEO, colleagues. I think it is also important to speak to this. So just what it means to BRASA. It may be important to engage with the CEO here. But also the head of the unit who is here. It may just be necessary to speak to Ukabazela. Colleagues, thank you so much. If for cameras, just remain where you are. It's not many people, so I think we could just set up somewhere where the Minister will then be taken and the CEO, whoever you choose.